What is your view? Do you think that porn and the proliferation of pornography is fundamentally immoral and wrong?
I don't know about being immoral, but I think the problem with porn is its normalization. Because the minute that porn becomes normalized, what we're saying is that lewdness and pornography can almost become an end in themselves. So it's no longer something that in the old days people would go to these shops, get a brown envelope, and be something that they would hide away and they would kind of rely on. And again, it's become a fashion, and not just a fashion, but a fetish. And I think the real problem that has occurred is that as pornography become industrialized, so there's been a growing tendency to erode the boundary between the public and the private sphere. And it has led to a situation where, as porn creates this kind of impossible fantasy world, the real fantasy that you and I have when we engage in our relationship becomes compromised. It almost becomes impossible to fantasize anymore in the way that people have done for centuries, for a very simple reason that when you have fantasy on demand in a kind of very consumerist mode, our imagination becomes entirely enveloped by these images that kind of we see. So for me, the real problem has become two things. One is that sex has become decoupled from relationships, which I think is a huge problem. But more importantly, and this is something that is almost never touched upon, increasingly sex itself has become linked to identity. So there used to be a time when I was a kid, I'm a 60s person, we used to have a lot of sex, but that was never our identity. My identity was as somebody that liked history or liked football or something else. But at a certain point, sex itself becomes insinuated into people's identity to the point at which gender becomes really important. You have all these all this focus on your particular sexual preference to the point at which what matters is no longer what you do, your achievements, your accomplishments. This is how I have sex. And I think that the consequences of that is that as we become more obsessed with identity, it also becomes separated from relationship. So we now have a situation where sex is no longer about what two people do with each other, but it also becomes what you do to yourself.